So, Mike Pence, Mike Pence, at the very last minute, did the right thing for the election. He had this symbolic role of verifying the election in Congress, and he did it. Now, there was pressure from the Trump base and from Trump himself saying, Mike, don't certify the results. Now, again, if he were to even try to not do it, I don't think that's legally binding because we've already had the processes in place. We already know the result of the election. We already had the 60 court cases where Trump lost. There's nothing Mike Pence could really do to say, I'm going to single-handedly try to overturn the election. But people who are conspiracy-minded on the far right thought there was something you could do. So Mike Pence did the right thing and was like, yeah, okay, yeah, Biden won. What do you want me to do? And this is a guy who was so loyal to Trump every step of the way. Well, when that happened, Trump snapped. Because it doesn't take much for Trump to turn on you, to stick the knife in your back and twist it. We saw this over and over again in his administration. That's why there was such high turnover in his administration, because he would axe anybody who he felt wasn't 1,000,000,000% loyal to him and didn't do everything that he wanted them to do. So Trump has that authoritarian impulse that he often flexes. And since then, there's been a number of other stories that we've covered on this show about how, look, Trump and Pence are officially broken up. And Trump said a number of things like, if/when Trump runs in 2024, he's not running with Mike Pence again. He axes him completely because of what he did. So now Trump's litmus test is you have to be 1,000,000,000% loyal to me, and you have to say that the last election was not free and fair. So that's Trump's litmus test. Nothing to do with policy, nothing to do with helping the American people. It's all me, protect my ego. So, well, that puts Pence in an interesting situation, doesn't it? Because we have the January 6th committee and hearings ongoing, and a lot of people are voluntarily talking. Then you have a lot of people who are being subpoenaed. And look at what we have here. So, Raw Story says, Pence wants to testify in January 6th probe, but fears backlash from the MAGA base. This is a former aide to Mike Pence who's saying this. So, they go on to describe how, listen, is he going to do it voluntarily? No, probably not. But if he's subpoenaed, will he talk? Yeah. Whoa. This just got interesting. Now, there's one big problem, though, and it's the same problem we see with Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz wants to be president more than anything else in the world, and he will do everything to try to win. Now, funny enough, that's actually maybe the main thing that's going to prevent him from being president, is when you want it so bad and it's so obvious you're putting the cart before the horse, people look at you like a smug, smarmy, weird, overly calculating person in the first place, just like Hillary. And that's true. Mike Pence also wants to be president really bad. And he thinks that's like fulfilling God's plan because he's super religious. So Mike Pence, he wants to be president. He values that above everything else. He thinks if he testifies, that'll ruin his chances of becoming president because he doesn't want to cross the Trump base, which is the base of the Republican Party at this point. But on the other hand, he also feels like, look, we got to finish Trump off because the whole Republican Party is tied to Donald Trump. And if he runs again, he'll probably win again. So, like, what can I do to make it so that this guy's political career is dead and gone fully and completely? And so that would indicate, hey, testify. So he has two urges. One is, don't testify, it'll hurt your chances of being president. The other is, testify, it'll help your chances of being president. And this is why I told you guys, look, the thing that McConnell could have done immediately after January 6th, it was sitting right there for them. You know, everybody was, impeach Trump or whatever. Trump's leaving office anyway. Why would you impeach him? That's not going to change anything. What they could have done, and there was a legal process whereby you do this, is ban him from any public office moving forward. That's what they could have done, and they didn't do it. And so now there's the constant threat of Trump, and he still has the heart of the base. Well, Mike Pence could tell the truth and bury Trump and also destroy his chances of being president. Look, I think if he were to testify, it would destroy his chances of being president because that's Trump's base. The Republican Party base is Trump's base. But if he could just somehow convince himself like, no, actually, this might help my chances of being president because then Trump's totally out of the picture, well, then he might do it. So he had enough integrity to not say, Trump won and the Biden win was illegitimate. He had enough integrity to do that. Does he have enough integrity to testify? I don't think so. I don't think so. But it is possible, if he's subpoenaed and he talks, that we can get more of the juicy details. Now, the other thing I'll add, the little asterisk here at the end of the conversation, is it doesn't even matter what Pence says unless that's used to spur Congress into action to then pass the law that Trump can never be president. And that seems highly unlikely. I mean, the Democrats hold the House right now, so it could pass the House. In the Senate, you run into trouble. I mean, maybe you have some, like the Mitt Romney types, who might sign off on this idea that, no, he should never be president again because he wanted to stay in office after he lost. But are you going to find enough Republican votes in order to get that done? I don't think so. So ultimately, I think most of the pressure here is on Pence to not talk. But for the love of God, wouldn't it be amazing if he felt like, no, this might help my chances of becoming president because then Trump's out of the picture if I take him out of the picture, and so then he does it. But you'd be asking Mike Pence to potentially take a bullet for his own career to do that. And I think he's smart enough to know it probably won't help him politically if he does it because the Republican base is the Trump base. So ultimately, will Mike Pence flip on Trump in January 6th testimony? I don't think so. I think if they subpoena him, I think he will talk, but I think it's more likely he takes the rough edges off of what really happened that day. And maybe we get a couple big stories out of it, but it wouldn't be enough to tank Trump because, as we all know, usually the harder the media goes after Trump and the more negative stories there are about Trump, the more it helps him because that base is married to the guy. And funny enough, that sort of builds Trump's narrative for him. Hey, look, the establishment of both parties is against me, so I must be doing something right. Well, sometimes, no, what you did was actually really, really wrong, and that's why both parties are against you. But there's so much institutional distrust in this country that he can use that to his benefit. So I don't think Mike Pence is going to flip on Trump in the way that could really bury Trump. But I do put the proposition at 50-50 that he'll give testimony. But he would have to be subpoenaed for it. So we shall see. There was news that like Alex Jones was subpoenaed. I haven't heard anything about that since. I don't know if it's coming in the future, but look, largely, even I know what happened on January 6th was horrendous, but keep it real. What's happening now with this thing is largely political theater. Because if nothing's going to come of it substantively, then what are we doing here? And that's a shame. They went after, there was like hundreds of people have been, prosecuted and locked up for actually breaking the law on January 6th. That's good. But in terms of this commission, unless at the end of it there's a law passed that said Donald Trump can't hold office in the United States of America, then I think it's a waste of time. And even Joe Manchin said this in talks with Republicans early on. He's like, look, you got to give us this January 6th commission thing because at least then we can do the political theater and that'll distract people from the fact that we ain't doing shit in terms of policy substance. That's what Joe Manchin was saying to Republicans. It's like, hey, get on board with this so we don't have to make any actual changes to our laws and the social safety net, and we don't have to pass policy that will help people because we could just give the Democratic base political theater, and that might be enough to distract them and rile them up and help the Democrats moving forward into the next election. So anyway, Mike Pence had the integrity to not say Trump won when the election was, to not say Trump won when the election was being certified, to do the right thing then. I don't think he has enough integrity to really now turn the tables, put the knife in Trump's back and twist it. Because he might accurately determine that this would hurt his own political chances of being president in the future. He wants to ride on the Trump coattails and become president. He doesn't want to slit Trump's throat and leave him in a ditch and become president. And he probably thinks that that's unlikely to happen anyway because the base loves Trump so much. So anyway, there you have it. But there were so many steps of the way where the Republican Party could have done more to bury Trump and make it so he could never hold office again. And they just didn't do it. And they didn't do it because they're cucks. And they were hoping that slowly but surely Trump would fade away. Well, that's not the case. And he's still the top figure in the Republican Party. And so now for 2024, he's the favorite on that side of the aisle. And you could have just done a clean break. You could have just ripped that Band-Aid off quickly. But they didn't do it. They didn't do it, and so here we are.
Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.